Hello, and welcome back to Channel Zero TV with John and John. I'm John.
And I'm John.
Sorry for a little bit of delay since our last episode, but we're in for a real treat today. For tonight, we are covering The Day the Clown Cried. Now, don't get your hopes up. This is actually not the found footage of one of the most important lost films of all time. This is a documentary about the making of Jerry Lewis's controversial Holocaust movie. John, do you want to tell folks a little bit about the film and what we're going to watch?
Yes, this was behind-the-scenes footage shot by a Danish television documentary crew in Sweden, where The Day the Clown Cried was mostly shot in 1972. That's why you'll be hearing some voiceover narration in Danish, but they also interview Jerry Lewis, who discusses some of his unique production methods. And of course, he's speaking in English, and there's also some outtakes from The Day the Clown Cried, which is what makes this footage, I think, so very, very interesting.
Terrific. Okay, well, we're going to show you what footage is extant right now or is available right now, and then we'll be back right afterwards to talk about The Day the Clown Cried.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Schmidt's Greatest Circus, with the most fantastic acts ever gathered together in one ring and starring Gustav, Premier Clown. And now, ladies and gentlemen, on with the show.
Jerry Lewis. Natuurlijk is Jerry met zijn bewegelijk gezicht een prachtige clown. Maar in het spel van de acteur voelen we al dadelijk de regisseur. Deze gag met de vlieger is circus, ja, maar het is vooral film. Hij steunt op een klankeffect dat in de circuszaal nooit zo goed kan overkomen.
Gerard, I'm going to a 25 on A. 25 millimeter. Take 15 off for this shot. 25.
De beste improvisaties zijn diegenen die voorbereid werden. Dat is ook de opvatting van Jerry Lewis. Zijn draaiboek is een voorbeeld in het genre. Er staat werkelijk alles in. Over zijn schouder heen kijken Jane Birkin en Serge Gainsbourg mee. Ja, verbazend netjes is dat boek. Maar ze hebben nog niets gezien. Na Jerry als clown en acteur, als dirigent, als productieleider, treedt hij op in de rol van geluidstechnicus. Je weet hoe hij van dergelijke apparatuur houdt. Bij ons heeft hij echt niets meer te leren. Integendeel moet hij de Franse technicus van zijn filmploeg op weg helpen. Terloops, Jerry is alleen door de griemenverf ouder geworden.
That's the 3 marks.
Yeah, it's a third mark. Because I put 2 on
It's hard for you to find. You know what I use? I use the tall tabs.
Yeah.
And then I number the tabs and they ride. You can spot them.
Yeah, that's better. We can...
Mr. Lewis, I ask you why you chose a special place in the soundtrack.
Why?
Yes.
Well, because it helps the scene, it helps the performers, it helps the crew. The variety of material that you use.
You have the music before the shooting, usually.
Well, it's temporary music. That's all it is. It's temporary. just so we can work to it. We work to it, and it helps the scene. Then later I will extract the music and have my composer write something that's similar to it. And this way he knows the feel I want, the attitude is clear, and it's helped everybody.
When you're acting, this music helps you for the performance.
Yes, well, it doesn't hurt. If it hurt, I would take it out, but it helps. That's why I have Joe here with a variety of tracks, sound effects, everything. I like to record with my production, and it helps me work better, it helps my crew, it helps everybody. Years ago, I'm an old-fashioned filmmaker. I should be 80 years old because when they did films years ago, Charlie Chaplin told me that he would never work without a violin on the set. And he told me about how they used to play music for the silent films. And it's a great idea. I've always done it. I thought I was an innovator until Chaplin told me I had a few fellas before me that did it.
Kijk, op de spiegel alweer een foto. Jerry zelf als clown met precieze aanwijzingen voor het grimeren. Zo heeft hij van elk personage vooraf een reeks foto's gemaakt en in de film moeten zij aan dat beeld beantwoorden. Een grappig moment kan moeite kosten. Al dadelijk zal het mislopen en dat Jerry niet opgetogen is, kan men horen.
Clown 21 deuxième. Coupez la lumière. Coupe, Oli. Coupe la lumière. My God. Vite. Oh shit. Coupez. Clown 21 troisième. Coupez la lumière. Clown 21 cinquième. Coupez la lumière. Way back. Lumière. Coupez. Septième. On coupe là. On coupe. Way back. Lumière. Playback. Lumière.
Okay, so for those of you not in the know, The Day the Clown Cried was a Jerry Lewis picture from 1972 in which he played a German clown who had been arrested for making fun of Hitler and the Gestapo and put into a prison camp, a German prison camp. And he was later moved to Auschwitz, where he found a calling entertaining the Jewish children and was exploited by the Nazis to sort of abuse them as they sort of went into the gas chambers. So needless to say, this was quite a controversial picture when it was shot in 1972. It never saw the light of day for a variety of reasons. John, you want to talk a little bit about the checkered history, sort of hinted at in that documentary of The Day the Clown Cried?
Yeah, there's a lot here to unpack. I will just quickly say this. You and I have always had a sort of tacit agreement that if somehow one of us had come across this on home video, however we might, whatever the format would be, I think we've both agreed that we would drop whatever we were doing that day and immediately screen it. Now, that having been said, let me state my firm belief that if this film ever is completed and released, I don't think it's anything you're ever going to want to watch twice, no matter how much you do want to see it. Jerry Lewis, love him or hate him, I mean, he was a very, very talented filmmaker and an auteur unto himself, and the only sort of completely integrated filmmaker working in comedy. But this is just simply a topic that is way the hell out over his head. What happened with the picture was that a Swedish film producer approached Jerry Lewis with a script written by others called The Day the Clown Cried. Lewis went into an agreement with this producer to direct and to star. Now, there's a misconception here I want to clear up. He did not write this script. The script was brought to him already written, ready to go, and after much hemming and hawing, he agreed to do it. Halfway through the production, the production is plagued with all kinds of money problems because the producer in question allegedly, did not show up with any of the promised funds. Lewis finds out that, in fact, the option on the script had expired. A sum of money was not paid to the script writers, and so therefore the rights to the script and therefore the rights to the entire production had reverted to the script writers. So Lewis was frantic. He was liquidating assets, trying to finish the film. He tried to get into an agreement, a contract with the script writers to bring them into the production process, but they apparently saw a rough cut of The Day the Clown Cried and thought it completely contradicted the spirit of their original script and refused to have anything to do with them. So legally, the film can never be released until their rights are somehow settled, and I guess that's nowhere near happening at this point.
And I think you mentioned while he inherited the script, he did a substantial rewrite on it, attempted to make the main character himself more sympathetic. I don't think we're giving too much away. The script has been out and about for decades now, but originally the clown character, the main character, was a very unappealing human being, an alcoholic, sort of saw this opportunity to essentially collaborate with the Nazis to amuse children into their deaths as a way to kind of ingratiate himself with authorities while also being celebrated as a clown and being kind of beloved by the children he's about to kill also. So a very controversial conceit, but Lewis sort of redeemed the character. The great scene is when he decides he will not just sort of lead the children to the gas chamber, but will go in there himself and die, comforting the children towards the end. So that was a major break. But I think as you pointed out, the real reason this has not seen the light of day are kind of legal rights issues, but also there was a sense that sort of Lewis was not pleased with the production. It was never fully completed. Whatever footage is out there will never be made into a complete movie, but he was not sort of pleased with what he had wrought. And so I think the thought is that he had suppressed this for years, but I guess, it's much more complicated than that.
Less than a dozen or so people that have seen a rough cut. The script writers remarked that, and you can see this in the behind the scenes footage, the outtakes that we saw tonight, that, Jerry really sort of turned this as written, thoroughly dislikable character into a sort of sad little clown Emmett Kelly character. And that, really sort of radically undercuts, the impetus of the script. And you can just see it in the juggling act and the cigarette stuff. I mean, this is all sort of the sort of Chaplin-esque stuff he had been doing in the movies for years. And, does that work within the context, especially since, the other misconception I'd like to clear up is that The Day the Clown Cried is not a comedy. It has comical elements in it, but I mean, it's a tragedy. It's about the damn Holocaust. So, whether or not that sort of Emmett Kelly approach to this character would work, I mean, it seems to me highly, highly, highly debatable.
And we should note that this was years before sort of Holocaust stories, much less films, sort of went mainstream, right? This is, just the beginning of books on the Holocaust, sort of hitting mainstream literature. I believe this is before Shoah, the great documentary about the Holocaust came out, and then the TV series Holocaust, interestingly enough, this sort of made for television melodrama with Meryl Streep, was what really sort of brought Holocaust stories into popular culture. Interestingly enough, that's when Germans began to sort of like reconcile themselves with their own history over this particular chapter, was not with sort of pathos drenched documentaries, but with the sort of melodrama of this American TV series, Holocaust. So, in many ways, Lewis and the scriptwriters and everybody involved with this film were way ahead of their time. And we've seen since that it's not as though this formula can't work. Life is Beautiful won the Academy Award decades later. Robin Williams and Jacob the Liar dealt with similar material. So it became sort of acceptable to tell dramatic stories, even dramatic stories with comic elements, but not in 1972. He was treading on very, very kind of new territory and somewhat thin ice at the time.
No argument there.
This is taken on legend as this great unknown. As John mentioned, just a handful of people have ever seen it. Harry Shearer from Simpsons fame has seen it and described it as sort of, the Holocaust as black light poster. But I guess there is a cut that Lewis, before he died, donated to the Library of Congress.
I've heard different things about that. I've heard that it's a rough cut. I've also heard that it's a disparate collection of outtakes. It sounds like the Library of Congress does not, in fact, have a complete cut of it. But at the same time, based on everything I've read, which sounds like it's everything you've read, there is somewhere out there a rough cut of it that Harry Shearer saw, the scriptwriters saw. There's a French film critic, Jean-Michel Frodin, I'm not pronouncing his name correctly, but he claims to have seen it. And he says it could be a very, very good movie.
Right, he had a very different reaction to it than Shearer
Yeah,
did.
he had a very different reaction to it. I don't know if I necessarily accord with that, but then again, neither you nor I have seen it.
Nor has most of the human race. So anyway, I believe in 2024, whatever the Library of Congress has may be made available. I don't know if they've made available widely to the public, but may be available. But until then, this is, remains the sort of white whale of the obscure film hunter, like John and myself. So, and I promise you, if we ever do stumble across it, you will watch it here first on Channel Zero TV. I'm John.
And I'm John.
We will catch you next time.